We'll be starting in just a minute, and I am delighted to see all of you people here. This is just terrific. Thank you so much for coming. I wanted to give you you already know that Mary Dubard is going to be reading. Next week, the Forest Forward had publicized that Sandra Stein would be reading, but we have a hero here. Where did she go? Delana, there she is. Delana Bueller is going to be reading in Sandra's absence. So come back next week too. But we're happy to have you all here and our reader, Mary Dubard.
Well, and this is working good. So the book I'm reading from today is called Christmas, and where did I get it? I got it at the Encore store Christmas giveaway a couple of weeks ago. And if anybody here donated it, thank you very much. It's a beautiful little book, and you can look at it later and see some of the pictures in it. And this was advertised as something to kind of get you in the mood for Christmas, because all of a sudden, Christmas is upon us. And we had a December the 1st this week, and look at our calendar, and wow, it's Christmas. So we of a certain age can remember our post-war Christmases when we got we got a big gift. We got our doll, we got our football, we maybe got a coat. That was a big gift. Well, things are a little different now, but we did have the gathering of family from far away, but now it seems that Christmas is a time of excesses. There are piles of gifts, and there are multiple religious and mostly secular gatherings. There's noise, there are decorations, there are pressures to buy, and there are pressures to give, and many weeks before December the 25th. And the readings that I'm going to do today are mostly from famous people, might help us to consider the meaningful part of Christmas, which might have been smothered under all of these excesses, and may bring back some good memories in your lives too. I'm going to start with George Bernard Shaw. You might be surprised at this one. This was published in a publication called The World on December the 20th, 1893. Like all intelligent people, I greatly dislike Christmas. It revolts me to see a whole nation refrain from music for weeks together in order that every man may rifle his neighbor's pockets under the cover of a ghastly general pretense of festivity. It is really an atrocious institution. This Christmas, we must be gluttonous because it is Christmas. We must be drunken because it is Christmas. We must be insincerely generous. We must buy things that nobody wants, give them to people we don't like. We must go to absurd entertainments that make even our little children satirical. We must writhe under venal officiousness from legions of freebooters, all because it is Christmas. That is, because the mass of the population, including the all-powerful middle-class tradesmen, depend on a week of license and brigandage, waste and intemperance to clear off its outstanding liabilities at the end of the year. So bah humbug to you, George Bernard Shaw. But we're going to have some alternate ideas here. We're going to start with Charles Dickens. And this is from Sketches by Boz. Charles Dickens, as you all know, pretty much his life spanned the 19th century, and most of these readings are from the 19th century. Charles says, Christmas time, that man must be a misanthrope indeed, in whose breast something like a jovial feeling is not roused, in whose mind some pleasant associations are not awakened by the recurrence of Christmas. There are people who will tell you that Christmas is not to them what it used to be, that each succeeding Christmas has found some cherished hope or happy prospect of the year before dimmed or passed away, that the present only serves to remind them of reduced circumstances and straitened incomes, of the feast they once bestowed on in hollow friends, and of the cold looks that meet them now in adversity and misfortune. Never heed such dismal reminiscences. There are few men who have lived long enough in the world who cannot call up such thoughts any day of the year. Then do not select the merriest of the 365 for your doleful recollections, but draw your chair nearer the blazing fire, fill the glass, and send around the song of, and if your room be smaller than it was a dozen years ago, or if your glass be filled with reeking punch instead of sparkling wine, put a good face on the matter and empty it offhand and fill another and troll off the old ditty you used to sing and thank God it's no worse. Who can be insensible to the outpourings of good feeling and the honest interchange of affectionate attachment which abound at this season of the year? A Christmas family party. We know nothing in nature more delightful. There seems a magic in the very name of Christmas. Petty jealousies and discords are forgotten. Social feelings are awakened in bosoms in which they had long been strangers. Father and son, or brother and sister who have met and passed with averted gaze, or a look of cold recognition for months before, proffer and return the cordial embrace and bury their past animosities in their present happiness. Kindly hearts that have yearned toward each other but have been withheld by false notions of pride and self-dignity are again reunited, and all is kindness and benevolence. Would that Christmas lasted the whole year through, as it ought, and that the prejudices and passions which deform our better nature were never called into action among those to whom they should ever be strangers. That's a little bit more uplifting. And another Dickens coming up here, and this from the Christmas Carol. Hello, a great deal of steam. The pudding was out of the copper. A smell like washing day. That was the cloth. A smell like an eating house and a pastry cook's next door to each other, and a laundress's next door to that. That was the pudding. In half a minute, Miss Cratchit entered, flushed and smiling proudly, with the pudding like a speckled cannonball, so hard and firm, blazing in half a quartern of ignited brandy, and bedight with a little Christmas holly stuck in the top. Oh, a wonderful pudding, Bob Cratchit said, and calmly too, that he regarded as the greatest success achieved by Miss Cratchit since their marriage. Miss Cratchit said that now the weight was off her mind, she would confess that she had had doubts about the quantity of flour. But everyone had something to say about it, but nobody said or thought it was at all a small pudding for such a large family. It would have been flat heresy to do so, and Cratchit would have blushed to hint at such a thing. At last the dinner was all done. The cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, the fire made up. The compound in the jug was being tasted and considered perfect. Apples and oranges were put upon the table, and a shovelful of chestnuts were on the fire. Then all the Cratchit family drew around the hearth, in which Bob Cratchit called a circle, meaning a half a circle, and at Bob Cratchit's elbow stood the family display of glass. There were 2 tumblers and a custard cup without a handle. Now these held the hot stuff from the jug, however, as well as golden goblets would have done, and Bob served it out with beaming looks, while the chestnuts on the fire sputtered and cracked noisily. Then Bob proposed, "A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us," which all the family re-echoed. "And God bless us, everyone," said Tiny Tim, the last of all. So, all right, and that's a little bit better. And we need to remember that in Victorian England, the Christmas wasn't even a day off for most people, but yet this feeling existed. And think of how the meagerness of the treats, a small pudding with a sprig of holly on top, leads us to the reason of good cheer. And associated with this story, But notice in the last two, there was not a mention whatsoever of any kind of presence or excesses that bothered George Bernard Shaw. So now we're on to a slightly different tone. This is a meditation by a young Italian named Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli, who was studying for the priesthood on Christmas Eve in 1902. He was later known as Pope John the 23rd. And this was his meditation on Christmas Eve. Night has fallen. The clear, bright stars are sparkling in the cold air. Noisy, strident voices rise to my ear from the city, voices of the revelers of this world who celebrate with merrymaking the poverty of their Savior. Around me in their rooms, my companions are asleep, and I am still wakeful, thinking of the mystery of Bethlehem. Come, come, Jesus, I await you. Mary and Joseph, knowing the hour is near, are turned away by the town folks and go out into the fields to look for a shelter. I am a poor shepherd. I have only a wretched stable, a small manger, some wisps of straw. I offer all these to you. Be pleased to come into my poor hovel. I offer you my heart. My soul is poor and bare of virtues. The straws of so many imperfections will prick you and make you weep. But, oh, my Lord, what can you expect? This is little is all I have. I'm touched by your poverty. I am moved to tears, but I have nothing better to offer you. Jesus, honor my soul with your presence. Adorn it with your graces. Burn this straw and change it into a soft couch for your most holy body. Jesus, I am here waiting for your coming. Wicked men have driven you out, and the wind is like ice. I am a poor man, but I will warm you as well as I can. At least be pleased that I wish to welcome you warmly, to love you and sacrifice myself for you. That reminded me of the Christmas carol I said last year when we were doing the Gift of the Magi, a poem by Christina Rossetti. It became a Christmas carol in the bleak midwinter. And the third verse of that was, what can I give him, poor that I am? If I were a shepherd, I would give a lamb. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. But what can I give him? I give him my heart. So there's a different sort of sentiment there about Christmas. So on to a reading for Home for Christmas by Elizabeth Bowen, which might evoke familiar feelings in your memories of the many moods of Christmas. This is meeting time again. Home is the magnet. The winter land roars and hums with the eager speed of return journeys. The dark is noisy and bright with late night arrivals, doors thrown open, running shadows on snow, open arms, kisses, voices, laughter of everything and nothing. Inarticulate, giddying, and confused are those original minutes of being back again. The very familiarity of everything acts like shock. Contentment has to be drawn in slowly, steadyingly, in deep breaths. There's so much of it. We rely on home not to change, and it does not. Wherefore we give thanks. Again, Christmas, abiding point of return, set apart by its mystery, mood, and magic. The season seems in a way to stand outside time. All that is dear, that is lasting, renews its hold on us. We are home again. And now we'll hear from Louisa May Alcott. This is about a Christmas in Little Women that was a meager year, but nevertheless special. Jo was the first to awake in the gray dawn of Christmas morning. No stocking hung at the fireplace, and for a moment she felt as much disappointed as she did long ago when her little sock fell down because it was so crammed with goodies. Then she remembered her mother's promise, and slipping her hand under her pillow, drew out a little crimson-covered book. She knew it very well, for it was that beautiful old story of the best life ever lived, and Jo felt that it was a true guidebook for any pilgrim going the long journey. She woke Meg with a Merry Christmas and bade her see what was under her pillow. A green-covered book appeared with the same picture and a few words written by their mother, which made their one present very precious in their eyes. Presently Beth and Amy woke to rummage and find their little books, one dove-colored, one blue, and all sat looking and talking about them, while the east grew rosy with the coming day. Now, this is a letter from Virginia Woolf to her friend Clive Bell. It was written on December the 26th, 1909. It is from the book The Flight of the Mind, The Letters of Virginia Woolf from 1888 to 1912. And this is just a picture of contentment observing a pleasant season. My dear Clive, and just enjoy this beautiful writing. It is past 9 o'clock, and the people still sing carols beneath my window, which is open, owing to the clemency of the night. I am at the crossroads and at the center of the gossip of the village. The young men spend most of their day leaning against the wall and sometimes spitting. Innumerable hymns and carols issue from barns and doorways. Several windows behind which matrons sit are red and yellow, and a number of couples are wandering up and down the roads which shine dimly. Then there is the lighthouse, seen as through steamy glass, and a gray flat where the sea is. There is no moon or stars, but the air is soft as down, and one can see trees on the ridge of the road and the shapes of everything without any detail. No one seems to have any wish to go to bed. They circle aimlessly. Is this going on in all the villages of England now? After dinner is a very pleasant time. One feels in the mood of phrases as one sits by the fire, thinking how one staggered up to Tren Combe in the mist this afternoon and sat on a granite tomb on the top, surveyed the land with the rain dripping against one's skin. There are, as you remember, rocks comparable to couchant camels and granite gateposts, and a smooth turf road between them. Thinking it over is a pleasant thing. So moving from this expression of vague contentment to a deeper expression of what the coming of the Christ child can evoke in a believer's heart, this is from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And here's the backstory of this. This has been made into a Christmas carol, I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. But in 1861, 2 years before writing this poem, Longfellow's personal peace was shaken when his second wife of 18 years, to whom he was very devoted, was fatally burned in an accidental fire. Then in 1863, during the Civil War, Longfellow's oldest son, Charles Appleton Longfellow, joined the Union Army without his father's blessing. Longfellow was informed by a letter dated on March the 14th, 1863, after Charles had left. I've tried hard, this is Charles speaking, I have tried hard to resist the temptation of going without your leave, but I cannot any longer, he wrote. I feel it to be my first duty to do what I can for my country, and I would willingly lay down my life for it if it would do any good. So Charles was soon appointed as a lieutenant, but in November he was severely wounded in the Battle of Mine Run, and his time as a soldier was finished. So Longfellow opens this poem was written on Christmas Eve in, Christmas Day in 1863, that same year. He opens the poem with a stanza expressing optimism before quickly falling into the pessimistic mood, reflecting the nation during the Civil War. Nevertheless, the poem concludes with a call for faith to overcome death and despair. All of these verses are not in hymn books, but this is the total poem. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to men, and thought how, as the day had come, the belfries of all Christendom had rolled along the unbroken song of peace on earth and goodwill to men. Till ringing, singing on its way, the world revolved from night to day, a voice, a chime, a chant sublime of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then from each black, accursed mouth, the cannon thundered in the south, and with the sound the carols drowned of peace on earth, goodwill to men. It was as if an earthquake rent the hearthstones of a continent and made forlorn the households born of peace on earth, goodwill to men. In despair, I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then pealed the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. Now we're moving to Alfred Lord Tennyson. We're moving from Christmas and looking toward the future. Alfred Lord Tennyson's life spanned the 19th century also. Let's see. Where are you? Here it is. This poem is part of From In Memoriam. Ring out wild bells to the wild sky, the flying cloud, the frosty light. The year is dying in the night. Ring out wild bells and let him die. Ring out the old, ring in the new. Ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going, let him go. Ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out old shapes of foul disease. Ring out the narrowing lust of gold. Ring out the thousand wars of old. Ring in the 1,000 years of peace. Ring in valiant men and free, the larger heart, the kindlier hand. Ring out the darkness of the land. Ring in the Christ that is to be. So for those mostly 19th century, I'm going to have two from the 21st century. And the first one appeared in my inbox today, so I'm adding it. It's from Garrison Keillor. I get his column just about every day. And this was written of 2 days ago, last Sunday. Well, first he talked about going down to Macy's and seeing the wide variety of people and expressions of Christmas that you would see on a New York street. And then he says, but on church Sunday morning, this is 3 days ago, was sparsely attended. The first Sunday of Advent, but the pews were half empty. The parishioners have gone to spend Thanksgiving with distant family, perhaps, and when the sermon landed, I was glad they weren't there to hear it. When women came into the priesthood, they brought a beautiful, simple style of preaching, one person speaking to a room full of others. But some men retained the old ornamental Gothic style of dramatic intoning, a performance of righteousness, which as an echoey sanctuary comes out half unintelligible. His message was, when times are hard, don't give up. And I wanted to get up and leave. I walked home afterwards, a cold, rainy day on the Upper West Side. I missed Minnesota, which was getting snow that day. I wanted to be walking through St. Anthony Park, the Lutheran neighborhood in St. Paul, and feel the good cheer, the Christmas lights strung on the lampposts, the choir at the seminary rehearsing, "Wake, O wake, with tidings thrilling, the watchmen of the air are filling, arise, Jerusalem, arise." The beautiful Christmases of my childhood were created by women who had lost their mother when they were small. They saw a sister die of scarlet fever. They went through the terrible depression, the dust storms, endured tragedy, and yet were inspired to make this perfect day, the pine boughs, the carols sung around the piano, the gifts perfectly wrapped, the feast. My mother and her sisters did this, 8 girls in a family of 12, including the girl who died. Now, my dad was dubious about Christmas. The expense, the fuss, the commerce, the pop music, which seemed to him a profanation of the sacred. But he yielded to my mother's passion to create one perfect day for her children despite the grief and the hardship all around. And now this old man, Garrison Keeler, readies himself to set off on the road performing 8 Christmas shows with a cast of 8. 2 hours of songs, sketches, a story, and we'll dim the lights and light a candle and hum a note, and the crowd will sing Silent Night, and I want it to be perfect, as my mother made it for us, in a country torn apart by ranting and disenchantment, where all is not calm or bright. Nonetheless, our culture gives us this one day that we can make a work of art, and when you hear a crowd of strangers, not so different from that mob at Macy's, sing, "Round yon Virgin, Mother and Child, Holy Infant so tender and mild," something beautiful is made. My other 21st century is from our good friend and a friend of many of you, Joe Harvard. And this comes from the Christmas letter he sent in 2021, which I have saved. And as you recall, that 2021 was a COVID year. And he was mentioning that, and then this is part of the letter. "We have watched the long lines of people hoping for food to survive another week. I've not even mentioned the turmoil in our political system and the racism confronted by the Black Lives Matter movement in response to brutal and unjustified treatment of the most vulnerable among us. You not only get the picture, you have experienced it. To borrow a description from Scripture, we are people who walk in a land of deep darkness." That's a quote from Isaiah 6. So I was pondering this horrific landscape when I received an email from a young man in Charleston who had been a faithful attendee in the weekly men's breakfast and Bible study I led during my years as transitional pastor at Fort Scott's Presbyterian Church. He had lots of questions, and I enjoyed our relationship very much. His email contained the following: "I found your sermon on putting a light in the window, which I remembered enjoying, and was struck by this excerpt," and this is an excerpt from Joe's sermon. "As I drove along down the street in downtown Decatur, Georgia, beside the railroad tracks near a small motel, I noticed that in one of the windows someone had placed a single electric candle. What is that all about? I thought. Someone who rents a cheap room, probably by the week, in a motel by the railroad tracks, and they put a candle in the window? What kind of statement of hope is that all about?" But the hope Isaiah addressed in Isaiah 11 and presents to us today begins with a stump that is left after the tree has been cut down. We often say to someone, "Well, you stumped me," meaning you're at a dead end. So I'm going to read this Isaiah 11 from the Hebrew Scriptures, and those of us who are Christians see that this is a messianic prophecy, and those of us who are Christians see that being fulfilled in the season that we celebrate with the little baby in Bethlehem being born. But this can be a word of hope for everyone. "A shoot shall come out from the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of its roots. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest on him, and the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord, and his delight will be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or hear by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt around his waist, and faithfulness the belt around his loins. The wolf will lie down with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid. The calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together. And the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and the nursing child will play over the hole of the asp. And the weaned child shall put his hand on the adder's den. They will not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. And Job continues, my friends, it is precisely there when we are stumped, when we are at a dead end, that the Spirit of the Lord begins to work among us to bring about hope. It is when we are trapped in a small room in a dingy motel that we have the audacity to believe we can light a candle in the window. I would never have imagined that someone would remember and quote it from an old sermon of mine, and that it would be the word I needed to hear. All this suggests that the good news can come through an old sermon or the stump of a tree or anywhere God chooses to shine to our darkness. So in this winter season when light is scarce, I invite you to light a candle of hope. We believe that God, who has brought us this far, is still at work to let the light shine in the darkness, and the darkness is unable to put it out. So I've presented some thoughts about the season that is before us, and may this season be meaningful to you with festive or quiet joy, being with those you love in actuality or in memory, and feeling aware of the hope expressed in the story we will remember. And like Tiny Tim, God bless us everyone. Oh, do come look at the pretty pictures in this book. Oh, questions about what? Christmas?